All right, welcome back, LSU baseball fans. I am joined by the man himself, Jay Johnson, getting ready for his fourth season as the head man of LSU baseball. Coach, can you feel it in the air? It's coming.
Yeah, excited for sure. I have the coach part of me that wants every practice day we can have, before opening day, but certainly excited. Know the players are excited. They've done a great job focusing on preparing and just about there, just about ready to get out and play somebody else and looking forward to next Friday.
Yeah, just a handful of scrimmages and practices left. Who do you feel like has really acquitted themselves well in this kind of run up to the season?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a really good couple weeks in terms of the productivity that we've gotten better. Pretty much each scrimmage that we've gone along here, I would give the first couple days, to the pitchers in terms of, coming off a little bit of a long break, without live at bats. It was cold. The first couple days, the pitchers kind of led the charge. I think defensively, we've been pretty solid for 2 weeks, which I'm happy to see. We have an athletic team, or more athletic team probably. So that should manifest itself in good defense. And then offensively, kind of each day as we've gone along, the at bats look like the hitters, eyes are catching up and taking better at bats and executing and putting it together. So, as far as individually, got some guys that have really stepped up and improved from the fall, which I love to see. If you're asking me for a couple names, Connor Binge is a pitcher that has really thrown the ball well. Jacob Myers has really thrown the ball well. Maverick Rizzi has really thrown the ball well. And kind of got two groups of pitchers, guys that were stretching out to, either potentially go long innings, start potentially, and then a few guys that we've been preparing for, 1 inning shots and getting them up and going twice a week. And, both groups have done a pretty good job so far. And so there's a few names for you.
Well, Coach, at your press conference you had right before practice started, you mentioned about 8 different guys that could play in the outfield for you. Now, unfortunately, you only got 3 spots to get those 8 guys in. But how many different guys do you feel like we should expect to see, especially opening weekend or early in the season, as you try to maybe piece it up with a lineup or as the opposing pitcher changes, or if you're going to piece it together, how many different guys should we expect to see out there?
Yeah, it's probably to be determined still. I mean, we are going to scrimmage 4 times. We're going to scrimmage Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And because the pitchers are expanding their pitch counts, we actually get to play a little bit longer, this weekend than the previous 2 leading into the season. So, and because there's good competition, I'm not really quite ready to say, hey, this is what it's going to be. I certainly feel good about pretty much all of them. I mean, I know that sounds crazy to say that, but we were doing some team defense stuff. It was either cuts and relays or double cuts and relays or pop-up priority. And I looked out there and it was like, there's 3 guys over there. There's 2 guys over there. There's 3 guys. And I'm comfortable playing all of them and excited about that. I think all of them have unique ways that they can contribute. It's probably the one spot on the team where, you have a little flexibility with, whether it be injuries, hot streaks, cold streaks, pitching matchups. I would say I'm comfortable, playing all of them. And there's actually 2 guys in the infield that could go out there too, and do it. So looking forward to how that group plays. And they all bring something a little different to the table. So maybe to answer your question, there's more guys that we could use than just, 3 guys. I made a comment. We had a good day last Friday, good pitching, good defense. It's kind of a situational scrimmage. Guys took really good at bats. Like, this might be a team where even in like a 7-4 game, you might see 14 or 15 position players used. And so credit to the depth. And, like you said, a lot of that's in the outfield.
So how many legal pads have you gone through trying to write lineups and all of that?
I actually kind of went through a different process this year I've kind of delayed doing that because I do think there's a lot of worthy players or who we end up starting. Like there's a lot of guys that can do the job. And so kind of going through like a full evaluation, before really diving into that. Now I will say yesterday, kind of first major breakthrough, okay, if we play today, this is what I would do, and I actually feel pretty good about it. I think it also does it in a way where we can utilize the depth in the bench and take advantage of matchups, and when you have good players, you have more flexibility to do those things, and so I'm excited. And then it was kind of versus right-handed pitcher yesterday, and then this morning I locked my door and, did what I do, relative to looking at against left-handed pitching. And, so feel like we're pretty close on both sides now. I do want to let the weekend play out, like you said, those outfield spots, the designated hitter spot, utilizing the catching the right way, who catches certain guys the best. We feel like we have a few good options back there. So I actually haven't burned as many trees, writing this out as you might think, and kind of deliberately did that and feel good about it right now.
Yeah, so with all these guys that you're trying to get playing time, who are all extremely talented, and some of them, being veteran guys that maybe you're going to see their playing time maybe reduced a little bit, the increased competition, how do you kind of keep the team all engaged, and maybe some of the guys that maybe aren't, going to be playing as much? How do you keep everybody engaged?
Yeah, I get that question a lot here. And I think it's like, I think our players understand that, this is LSU. Like, we're trying to win every game that we play, and they know it's a competition. Like, they thrive on that. And I think communication is the most important thing. And it's multi-layered. It's, maybe this is where you're at today. This is how you can help us win today. This is what this could look like down the road. It's that. But one thing they're going to get from us is we're going to coach every guy on the roster, and we're going to keep developing players. As an example, and I've had a lot of success the past 4 years, 5 years maybe, finishing my time at Arizona and then brought it to LSU, is early in the season, you may have some guys that don't pitch. That are, in this case, there's some talented guys that may not pitch as much as they want. There's certainly guys that are going to need more at bats. Like, we'll run like some pretty competitive inter squad games with those guys at the forefront of it these first few weeks of the season for sure. And this year it might last a little bit longer. And, those aren't situations that we take lightly. For some of those guys, it's going to be game day. I'll give you an example of that. So we have a really good freshman infielder here named Mikey Ryan, has very good defensive skills. He's a really good runner. We're actually going through kind of an offensive overhaul with him right now. He's got bat speed, he's got running speed. I think this guy's going to be a terrific player. But right now he's not going to start the year as a starter, with some of the experienced players that we have. But I'm going to want to play him because he has defensive value. And we think we have a good formula for developing him as a hitter now. Now that we have enough at bats under our belt, he's had enough time, experience, been with us, know how we communicate. Like, we're going to want to get him 5 or 6 at bats, and the stadium might not be filled up, but, use those inter squad games with maybe the 6 or 7 or 8 hitters continuing to come up that are right on the cusp of the lineup, so to speak, with the pitchers that need more time. And, one of my favorite stories is in 2021, we did this at Arizona, and like Riley Cooper pitched on that Monday. You know what I mean? Like Nick McCleary, who ended up being the starting shortstop of that team that went to Omaha, was getting at bats in that game. Tony Bullard was like our postseason hero. Hitting homers all over the place, regional, super regional. He was in that boat, and then by the end of the year, you're talking about 4 or 5 guys are the reason we went to Omaha. So we just try to develop everybody on a roster.
Coach, in the infield during your scrimmages so far, we've seen a lot of movement, a lot of guys trading spots. How important do you think it is to be, or do you think it's important at all for those guys to get settled in one spot, for the season?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of changed my philosophy on this a little bit recently of like, I think a good infielder can play any position in the infield. Let me start with that. Like if you're a dude, like you can play all the spots. And for all of them and their individual development, if they have the versatility to do that when they leave LSU and go to professional baseball, it makes them a much more valuable commodity as a pro player. So the players benefit from that. But kind of like another maybe shift a little bit of my mindset is like, hey, let's simplify things for them, if that makes sense. Like in the fall, we played Jared Jones some at third base. Jared Jones is going to play first base, like very clearly, so like, let's just make sure he stays over there and continues to be a good defensive first baseman, because he was a very good defensive first baseman for us. We feel like second base is the best place for Danny Dickinson to play. Then you take the other three guys, like, with Stephen Milam, Michael Braswell. Michael was our shortstop last year. He can play third. Stephen was our second baseman. I feel like he could play all three of those spots. So we're still kind of sorting that out a little bit. We didn't really, and that might evolve as we play some games in the non-league schedule. And then Tanner Reeves has been a really good player for us so far, and he's going to get some opportunities, be it second base or third base or in the outfield as well. So it's kind of narrowing a little bit, but then, we want to make sure they can do it all. And there's different scenarios where it might be the same guys that might end up in different spots by the time we're done, but we're trying to narrow it down a little bit or pare it down a little better.
It seems like looking at this lineup that there may not be, obviously Jared Jones brings the power, but there may not be, kind of that top to bottom as much power as maybe other teams you've had in the past. And maybe these guys are a little bit more, you mentioned kind of more athletic, and maybe not quite as much power. How do you see this offense, developing through the year? Like what is your vision for the offense this year?
Yeah, I think it's maybe a little different and not different all at the same time. Not different in, we try to prepare our team to win any type of game. 13-9, 2-1. Like we have to be able to play both games, because in the SEC you're going to face both games. Friday you're going to face a 2-1 game, and Sunday you're going to be in some 13-9 games because it's day game. The pitching does tail off a little bit, just naturally. Even as good as some staffs don't tail off. But hopefully we're one of them. But it's that's how it goes. You have to be prepared to do both. And I think some of our ability to play offense sometimes goes overlooked because we've had tremendous power, but we've been prepared to do what we need to do, and have had really good offenses here for 3 years. But yeah, coaching is putting your players in position to be successful. Long before I came over here to this side of the Mississippi River, the Nevada teams played offense a little differently. First couple of years at Arizona played offense a little differently. So I think we're prepared to do what we need to do, and we'll have plenty of home runs, and if that's what the game calls for, and then you get to that big ballpark in Hoover or Omaha, it's a different game. So you better be able to do it. Like Gavin Dugas, laid down a beautiful drag bunt against Tennessee, and third baseman threw it away. It opened up a cushion. We got a big win and got to keep playing. In the first game of the finals, Trey Morgan executed a great hit and run and ended up being the difference in a game. We got a hit right after that and took a 1-0 lead, ended up winning 4-3. So it just hasn't really been paid attention to because we've had so much power. And maybe the names are different. I still think it's going to be a pretty good offense to watch at the end of the day.
So you mentioned the catching position earlier. It seems like there's kind of three main guys. We're kind of looking at that spot. Between Hernandez Aaron Beatty, and Priester. What goes into who you might, because I'm assuming we're going to see all three of those guys, especially in the kind of the pre-conference. Who or how do you go about determining who goes on what day?
That's multiple things. I think you start with the defense. Certain guys catch certain guys better, and it may not be noticeable to the average fan, maybe even to the coach at some point. But when you look at, does the catcher keep strikes? Do we not lose strikes because of poor receiving? Does a pitcher have a certain outlier pitch that, one guy's ability to receive or block or frame, is their skills better fit for that guy? So you always start with defense there. And then, obviously you're going to look some at the pitching matchup thing. I do think we have good position player depth. Might see games where all three of them catch in one game, partly because of offense and partly because of defense. And I like that because, you mentioned the outfield early. It's going to allow us, to use some of those bats as well because, three guys are doing a good job behind the plate.
So, looking at the pitching staff, and you guys lost a ton of pitching to the draft last year, brought in a ton, from the transfer portal and, some talented freshmen. You mentioned Maverick Rizzi already, William Schmidt, Kason Evans has done really well in the fall and so far in the spring. And then, you got Cade Anderson coming back. You brought in Anthony Ianson, Connor Ware, like all of these guys. And then you got Chase Shores, who's coming back off of injury. How do you go about determining roles?
Yeah, like I said, and Coach Yeski, I want to start with this, is doing a spectacular job with these guys. I mean, a spectacular job with them. And I think they all know who they are and what they need to execute to be successful. And, self-awareness is one of the main things that we really try to teach and develop, with our players. So you start there, but like I said, we've kind of broke them into two groups, elevated some pitch counts to where, guys can start extended relief, or you bring them back down into a relief role. And because they're conditioned a different way, their stuff will play up, if you break them down back into shorter stints. And then with some guys, they're coming in twice a week, for an inning or an inning and a third. And you want them to understand their body, their recovery, the preparation to come in out of the bullpen multiple times in a week, who needs a clean inning versus who can come into the game with runners on base. There's a big distinction there. My belief is a great relief pitcher can come in at any time. And one of the most stats I value for pitchers the most is inherited runners not scoring, but we're kind of setting them up for maybe what they're going to do. And it's been pretty good so far. And like I said, there's been some guys that have been better in the spring than they've been in the fall. And, just like that lineup, there's still some things that we're going to not be able to find out until the real bullets start flying.
Chase Shores coming back off injury. How has he looked? Have you been, coming back? Is it kind of like, seems like it's just almost the same thing as Gage Jump last year, coming back off injury.
Yeah, good parallel. That I actually gave an interview, I think it was earlier today. Like I said, I love it that everybody loves to talk about the Tigers, but can't remember if I said this yesterday or today. I actually made the comparison to Chase to Gage last year. I think Gage had only thrown 14 college innings before coming here because of Tommy John surgery. I knew how talented he was. I knew he was going to be great for us. But he definitely got better as the year went along. His best was definitely at the end. And I think you'll probably see the same with Chase. But when you talk about the velocity being there, the improved secondary being there, now we just need to get him some game bullets and innings under his belt. But I think it will be very similar to that, where you'll see him do this, as the season progresses. All
right, Coach, I just got one more question for you. And this one came from my friends over at Chinook Seedery, which, by the way, you can use code CBC for 10% off all your seeds at Chinook Seedery. What is your favorite flavor of seeds?
Probably barbecue.
Barbecue?
Yeah. When I think about, being on the Little League field many years ago, like I feel like I had a lot of barbecue seeds in my mouth. So I don't think my taste or whatever they call it has probably changed that much. I'd go barbecue. So.
All right, well, I appreciate your time, Coach. We'll let you get back to getting ready for the season, but we're looking forward to it. I know I will be there Valentine's Day at the box. It's going to be a great weekend.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.